What is up, guys? Today we're gonna be going over the secret line against the Caro-Kann defense that smashes it in the most commonly played line. But first of all, why do we even want to go into this secret sideline instead of just playing one of the main lines such as the advanced variation or knight to c3? Well, the issue with that is your opponents who play the Caro-Kann defense do that over and over and over again, and therefore they typically have far greater experience than you have. Also, it's hard to generate attacking lines in the main line of the Caro-Kann defense, because if you trade, that leads to this pretty dull position that, again, your opponents typically are better aware of. Now, of course, you have some reckless alien gambit here, but since it became quite trendy, more and more of your opponents will know the right defense, and objectively it's -2 for white. Therefore, we're gonna go sideways into bishop to d3, a very tricky sideline, and I have prepared something really special for you for this video. Now, against bishop to d3, there are two moves that you're gonna be facing most of the time. It's either pawn takes c4, the most natural move for black to play, and I have prepared something special for you there, and also knight to f6, which is the second most played move. Let's start with knight to f6, and then we'll return to the pawn trade, just because there's a lot of fun playing this line as white. Now, in this case, it's actually a step in the wrong direction for black, because you can push your pawn forward and chase away this knight straight away. The knight literally has to move backwards, because if it tries to be centralized after knight to e4, all of a sudden after pawn to f3, this knight has no way to escape. All the squares where it could possibly go to are already under your control, and therefore this knight is going to be lost. This means that in reality they're going to move their knight to d7, but that allows a nice combo. You can push the pawn forward to e6, offering them to capture it, because otherwise you're going to capture something yourself. And if they do so, they fall right into your main trap. You go queen h5 check, and all of a sudden they're cooked, because they have to cover with pawn to g6, and then you play queen takes g6. Of course, you could have taken with a bishop as well, but not every day you can checkmate your opponent by your bishop within just 8 moves. At this point, you may be thinking, Igor, you're a grandmaster and you're offering me this weird sideline that 75% of my opponents will easily avoid by playing the most commonly played move pawn takes c4. You're right, but I have prepared something special for you there, so stick around. After we recapture, the vast majority of your opponents will play knight f6, very natural, they want to gain a tempo, and now instead of retreating, which is what most players do, we play another rare move, knight to c3, we just guard the bishop this way. Now, at this point, they will usually trade, you recapture, and although the position, objectively speaking, is equal, there is a very, very big caveat here. It's actually quite hard for black to figure out the right way. Now, at this point, they're going to play bishop f5, their standard Caro-Kann move, because bishop g4 is actually not possible. You're going to simply capture it, so bishop f5, they want to gain another tempo, and so far it feels great for black. However, we drag them out of their knowledge, because notice that in this position, prior to bishop f5, there is no knight to f6 anymore, that Tartakower variation that they wish to play, but now there is no knight there. So they can't play knight f6, force this trade, and get into the positions they're familiar with. Instead, they have to go into this line, bishop f5, which is far trickier. Now you play knight to g3, hitting the bishop, it goes back, you play knight f3, and this is the moment of truth. This is a pivotal moment in the game, because they have to play basically the only correct move that leads to an equal position. And any other move that they play will very likely lead into a quick devastation. Now, I'll reveal to you the correct way after a moment, but actually does not refute the idea. It only leads to an equal position, and chess is equal anyways, right? Now, the most played move is pawn e6 here, as you can see, quite natural. They wish to, develop their kingside and castle, so they go e6. And at this point, my bold promise to you is that if you get to this point, you're very likely to win the game. Because here's what you do. Instead of casting or anything else, you play h4, threatening h5. And the threat is really annoying, because that would hit the bishop, which is already unpleasant. Plus, the pawn from there is ready to be pushed forward and distort their kingside, generally speaking. Therefore, they will wish to prevent this. Now, the most usual move is h6, and it's the right move. If they try h5 with a similar purpose, that's actually pretty bad, because now after knight to e5, you attack this bishop, but it can't easily go away, because then this pawn on h5 is hanging. It would lead to lines similar to the main line, however, they would also lose this pawn on h5 in addition to all the other troubles that they have. Therefore, let's go back to the main line. Now, mainly they're going to play h6, preparing this escape square for their bishop, and we're fine with that. We play knight e5, bringing the knight into play, threatening to capture right here, and to split up the pawns, which would expose their king. They do not want that, therefore they retreat to h7. And now you play queen h5, kind of like Scholar's checkmate, for real. But in this case, now your attack is actually a lot more significant, and it's actually pretty hard for black to get away from here. Now you threaten this pawn. What can they do? As you can see, the most played move for them is queen to f6. Sometimes they go g6, and I'll show you what to do in those cases as well. Sometimes queen to c7. Again, usually you're going to win there pretty easily. After queen to f6, we have prepared something special once again. It's the move they don't expect. It's the move bishop g5. You sacrifice the bishop, even though you see that you're not the first player who has played this. But now we're hitting the bishop with the queen, with our bishop. They have to take it, and after this trade, all of a sudden this queen is nearly trapped. Also, it can't move away that easily because it still has to guard this pawn on f7, otherwise we're going to capture it with a queen. Now, if they play queen f4, the most played move, then after rook to h4, as you can see, like the queen is suddenly trapped somewhere in the middle of the board. Quite an unexpected variation, for sure. Like, you could even trap a grandmaster this way, for real, just because the variation is so unexpected. And if we turn on Stockfish, it goes to show that it's like plus 1.4 something, but if black finds some g6 correct variation, in most cases they won't, they're just going to trade here, and now it's like plus 4.4, like totally winning for white. The other way they may try to protect this pawn on f7 is going g6. Now in this case, obviously their bishop on h7 is totally out of game, which is already nice. And then you just bring over your queen to f3, renewing the very same threat, queen takes f7. After they try to guard it, you bring the other knight into the attack. This time you're threatening knight to f6 check, and as they try to defend, you then change your mind and reroute your knight to d6, which was the other threat that they missed. And now they're done once again. You attack their king, this pawn on f7, and as they capture it, that deflects the queen and allows you to check their king and go into this devastating attack. Now you threaten the rook, this bishop, knight to f7, forking king and queen, bishop takes h6, queen takes b7, going after this rook. Literally, it's all on fire for black and there is no defense. The fun fact about this position is that it's actually not bad for black to play bishop g8 here and guard this pawn this way, just given the fact how bad many other common options are. But of course, at this point, it seems like they're really trying to play Fischer random, and it's completely absurd. Certainly, they're not going to do that in reality. Some of your opponents will be tempted to guard this pawn by their queen by playing queen to c7. In this case, you can throw the bishop out and x-ray this queen. They try to block the diagonal, but then you have another little combo, knight takes f7, attacking this bishop, this rook, and also threatening this discover check. Pretty much every of your opponent will capture right here, but now this bishop on d6 is hanging. You can go ahead and capture it. Now you're up a pawn, you keep attacking, and you have a winning position. You may be wondering, hey, so what is the correct way for black? It can't be all that bad. Now, indeed, they could, of course, play better. After bishop d3, indeed, they need to take right here. We know that knight f6 is really bad. You can push the pawn forward, kick this knight away, and they're in trouble. Therefore, they need to take it. You recapture. Knight f6 is still fine. They're hitting your bishop. You guard this. After that, they trade. That is still correct. Bishop f5, again, is pretty much required because it's hard to develop their pieces. Otherwise, if they go e6, this bishop turns out to be bad. Therefore, bishop f5 is perfectly fine. We go knight g3, hitting the bishop. They need to move it. And now we go knight to f3. And as we talked earlier, this is the moment where they need to find the correct move. And the correct move is not the most played move, pawn e6, because as soon as they allow you that attack where you start pressuring this bishop and you bring your knight to e5, it quickly turns it into a nightmare for black. Therefore, let's take it back. Another failed attempt is playing h6 straight away. Some players play this indeed, but that doesn't change the situation really. In this case, you don't even need to push h4 because the bishop is already compromised. You can go knight e5 straight away, threatening to capture it, and then as it goes back, you can still throw your queen out and turn it into the variations similar to what we talked about. So let's take that back as well. Now, what is the correct move for black? Drum roll, it's knight to d7. They need to take control of this square so that you can't jump there yourself. And some of you who are advanced players will say, hey, Igor, knight d7 is a standard idea. Everybody will play that. Not really. Not everybody is as advanced as you are, right? So statistically, only 29% of players play this move knight d7 here, which means that roughly speaking, out of 10 games that you play, 7 will go wrong and allow your devastating attack, and only 3 will play knight d7, which just leads to an equal position. So to me, that sounds like a great deal. What do you do in this case? then you just play chess, right? You castle, you play normal chess. They play e6, they wish to develop their bishop to this active diagonal, and you can take it away by playing bishop f4, and now you took over, so they have to play a more modest move, bishop e7. Now you can play c4 to also take control of the center. Now you're having this nice position, they castle, and you play queen e2. You just play standard chess, bring your rooks to these central files, and you have a nice normal game of chess. Objectively it's equal, but you have a little more space, so I feel like in reality it's a little easier to play it with white. And if you want to know Fischer's rule to play the most brutal chess every time, check out this video right there.